Okay, good afternoon and welcome to Shulchan Aruch Yomi. Today we're doing Siman Nun Hey 55. It talks about Dina Kaddish, Barhu, and Kedusha, and Chazaras Ashas. Things are we refer to as Dvarim Shebekdusha. You know, the Gemara Megillah says you need Dvarim Shebekdusha, you need a minion for. Meaning Dashti B'Soch B'nai Yisrael. Gemara says Megillah Nachlav Dalid. B'Soch, the Gemara learns, is 10 people. Dvarim Shebekdusha need 10 people. The Tefillah B'Tzibur need 10. That's in Din Del Raisa, but davening with a minion is that the same thing? We will find out today, and especially Shulchan Aruch come up later. It's a long siman, 22 sifim. Let's see how long we can do it. Try to do it under half an hour. Aleph Omrim Kaddish. You say Kaddish. Bein Omrim was over Pachas Me'asaros Chaim B'nei Chorim Gedolim Sheviu Shtei Saros. You need 10 people, 10 full-fledged males. It's not good enough that 13-year-old. You have to be 13 years old and have Shtei Saros, which is necessary for Dinam Del Raisa. We're going to see Kaddish and Dvarim Shekdusha need, it's like Gemara learns a drasha. You need Midel Raisa. You need them to be valid bar mitzvah boys, not just good enough to rely on the chazaka of 13 that mistama they have two saros. You have to know that they have shtei saros. You need 10 people. You started with 10, and some people left in the middle. All those people left to live in the middle, right? Like me. Got a minyanim a lot of times. I have to leave in the morning early, so I try to avoid those minyanim with like 10 people, because then like they're in the middle. There's always like one or two guys that are trying to leave. I try to beat them out. So I'm the guy. I'm not we're gonna say it's an isser to leave a sea with less than 10 people. You can finish that kedusha or kaddish, or if you're a chazaras hashas, if you just start chazaras hashas, you can finish that chazaras hashas. We'll see. And the kaddish afterwards, but after that you can't. We finish dairu ruban. You can only finish it if rove of the people, 6 of the people are still there. If you leave, you're doing an avera. If you make the minion less than 10, the people that leave Hashem will be destroyed. If there's still 10 people, this is what I rely on. I leave. I get out of there. Gimel. If the shliach were started avos, right? And some people left. Now you have 9 people left. Gomer afilu kedusha. You can say the whole chazar shas, including kedusha. Let's say you had Baruch with 10 people, and then there's only 9 people left. You can say, obviously, we're going to see the tefillah b'tzibur, the silent tefillah b'tzibur, even though it's a praiseworthy thing to have in b'tzibur, that is not something midoraisa you need 10 people for. This is very important to note. However, for the Chazar Hashas, that is a Darash B'Kedusha. So if he wants to daven Chazar Hashas, the Shliach Tzibur, he needs to have 10 people. The Kvar Nishlam B'Tudas Yotzer, right? Birchas Kriyashma is distinct from the Tefillah. B'Miyatzu L'Achar Shehizchel V'Koram V'Kedusha Yechol Mahashlim Kol Seir HaKedusha V'Lomar HaKadosh Shalom Shel Achared Shehach Tefillah. If you started Chazar Hashas, even if you didn't get the Kedusha, the Mishnah Berurah says, you can finish all of Chazar Hashas, including Tzilas Kapayim apparently, and you could even say the Kaddish after davening, the Shayach Tefillah, Sher Omer Tiskabel Soson. You say Tiskabel Soson. This is the Kaddish Shalom, which you say after Uval Tzion. You can even say that. Aval in Koran B'Torah Tezeu Inyan Acher. But Kriyas HaTorah you can't do it. Tefillah Arvis V'Kaddish L'Acher Lo Shayach Shmal Berchoseh. Again, by Marav also, even if you had 10 people for Kriyas Shema and the Brachos Kriyas Shema, again Tefillah, even though there's a mitzvah Yisrael Mechkul Tefillah is not considered part of Tefillah, so you have to stop. You can't have. Well, there's no problem with davening with less than 10 people and a minion daven ma'ariv, but the kaddish afterwards you can't say dalid. Yesh man here learn there was a davar sherdusha b'tisha v'seir of katan shul yoser and ben sheish v'yodel mizas balim. There is a het there. This is a tosos in brachos that some say if you have 9 people, then you can round up to 10 as long as you have a 10th one who's a katan who's higiyel chinuch, right? He's 6. He knows him his balim. He's higiyel chinuch. He knows about davening. Lo nir in divrei like poskim. The Shulchan Aruch concedes that most poskim don't follow like this. But who are doing the Eved Isha and Mitzvah, and similarly in Eved Knaini and Isha, they're not part of the mitzvah. Like you have to be 10 men, 10 Yisraelim. It's our Shabbat Kedusha. You need Kedushas Yisrael, as I mentioned many times by Ian Shirim on the Gemara. Kedushas Yisrael, Kedushas Kahuna only applies to men. I feel like the chumash should be other in Litzarfo. Even if the katan is holding a nice chumash, an article, a stone chumash, right? The stone chumash, right? They have a special edition that's made out of gold. Every year, the Stone family gives away a gold chumash made out of pure gold. The pages are made out of them. Joke. They don't give out this chumash. It's a blue chumash. I'm sure you know what it is. He's holding the chumash. Mihu yeshno agin lahakel b'shas. Some people say you can be Mekel, Shas Hadchak, and Mishnah Berurah notes even without holding the Chumash, even if he doesn't hold the stone Chumash, even if he's only holding the Gemara, he's learning the Gemara in Cheder, you don't have to hold any Sefer, it doesn't make a difference. The Mishnah Berurah does bring some poskim say Dafka has to consider, but then he concludes that we don't really rely on this anyway, and really you shouldn't rely on a katan, whether he's holding a Sefer or not holding a Sefer, you need 10 people. If one of them's sleeping, that might be okay. We'll see you soon. Hey, imlo hevi shtei saros afilu gadol b'shanim dino kekatan atziyetzu rov shnosav. If he's above 13 and he doesn't have shtei saros, he checked, for example. Even if he's 13, he's like a katan. Atziyetzu rov shnosav ashiz bar husuris. If he's 35 in one day, because people live 70 years, so rov of his days have passed. He's 35 years old. He looks like a man, but he doesn't have shtei saros. You become a stris at 35 once rov shnosav. Im niru lo simoni stris. Let's say there's simonim that would identify him as a stris, someone who's incapable of fathering children. For example, when he urinates, doesn't have an arch. If we already identify the simonim, we know he's a stris, and a stris is a din of a gadol already. We don't care so much, the Ramah says, about having two hairs. This is a little perplexing, this Ramah over here, because until now we've been saying that you need 10 men and Doraisa. You need them to have 13 years and Shtei Saros. How could we rely on this Chazaka over here? It's clear from the Mishnah Berurah that we're talking about the idea of Tefillah B'tzibur, right? The Chiv on a Yachid to daven B'tzibur. There is no Chiv on a Yachid to daven B'tzibur, right? Even though the Gemara says that in Brachos Navches that it's a good thing to daven with a Tzibur, because your tefillah is Yoser Nishmas, it's Hashem, so to speak, hears your tefillah more easily if you daven among a tzibur. In order to be part of that tzibur, we rely, it's only a din derabanan to actually be part of that tzibur. Maybe it's only a minhag, so therefore, it's a good thing, so therefore you don't have to, you can rely on the chazak over there, but not chazaras hashas. For him to start doing chazaras hashas, you need 10 people that are doraisa, men. Vav, im hiskil echad me'asar l'spal levado, ve'eni yachal la'anos himoim. Let's say one of the 10 people, they get very cute, right? he's trying to finish up davening. You wanted to start chazaras hashas, and one guy's already saying tachan already, right? He's gone already. He's on a leinu, but he's still there, right? Osho yashin, or he fell asleep. Imagine this: the guy comes to daven and he just falls asleep. I guess there are some people like this. You know, it's just too long for them. You know, they lose interest. They fall asleep. Afilu hachim mitzaref imohem. Still, as long as he's present, he's a gadol. He's someone who's a man. He's father a man, so he's mitzaref. As long as it's only one. If it's more than one of these people that's sleeping, or is not part of the tzibur, so then you have a problem. For example, this happens a lot here when they want to do chazaras hashas, they have to wait to make sure there's 10 people, including the chazan, that you have 10 people to do chazaras hashas. It's very clear from this halacha that 9 is okay. 1 is still davening shmona esrei. That's okay also. So I don't know why they wait for 10. It's very clear according to Mishnah Berurah is okay. There are some poskim who say 6 people are okay. I like for Tircha the Tzibur, I like to rely on that, especially at Marav, you know, they wait, there's only 10 people in the minyan, and some of these minyanim, people down for a really long time, you know, you people have Shemona Esrei, you know, for like 10, 15, 20 minutes, you're waiting 20 minutes for this guy to finish Shemona Esrei, so you can have 10 people to say Kaddish, rely on the Mekilim, go with 6 people. Ched, say, Zayin, Kshechem Nispal Levado, Noch Shachirim, Yamtinu Mlomar Kaddish, Ad Sheyigmar Kadesh Nizke Gamhu. This is a nice thing. He says it's a nachon. It's a good idea. Meaning, if one of these people is taking too long, even if you have 10 people, this is what Allah is saying. Even if you have 10 people already, and you could start saying Kaddish, it's a nice thing to wait for the guy to finish the Shemona Esrei for an hour. You know, some people daven Shemona Esrei for an hour. It's a nice thing. The Shulchan says to wait a whole hour so you can answer Kaddish with them. I don't think it's the right thing to do. Maybe if he normally davens a regular Shemona Esrei, but someone who normally davens a really long Shemona Esrei, I don't think you have to wait for this guy. If someone is merely deaf, meaning not deaf by the definition of the Torah, he just can't hear, but he could speak, or he could speak, but he can't hear. He can't hear, but he could speak, or he can't speak, but he could hear. One of the two, he's not considered a cherish according to the Torah, and he's mitzaref. And that's like a cher shot of a katan. And the classical cher shot of a katan is someone who Not only can't hear, but also he can't speak. He's mute, a deaf mute. Then he's like a shot of a katan. He's not mitzari for daran shvudusha. Tel olam hu katan ashiyavish seros achashiyah ben yud gimel yom echad. He's always going to be a katan until, like we mentioned, for daran shvudusha, you need to know for sure. Not that he's 13 years old, a full 13 years old. Yom echad doesn't mean 13 years old in one day. It just means 13 full years, meaning, and even if the guy is born right before Shkia, let's say on Rosh Hashanah, this is the example the Mishnah Berurah gives, on Rosh Hashanah day, towards the end of the first day of Rosh Hashanah, you just have to wait till Shkia of next year, Rosh Hashanah night. We go by the halachic calendar, the Jewish calendar, not the Gregorian calendar, and that would make him, 13 years later, not the next year. 13 years later, then he's already considered 13. But again, since we're going by the halachic calendar, so therefore, if it's a Shana Ibor, if it's a leap year, the 13th, you have to wait the full 13th month. 13 months. Good. Let's say you have a leap year. This past year was a leap year. And your child, this is probably a trivia question somewhere. If you want to have a good trivia question, this is a great trivia question. Where is it you find that someone is born after somebody else, yet has his bar mitzvah before the other person? This is the case, right? Where someone is born on a leap year on Chavtet Adar Rishon, and someone else is born a couple of days later, Adar Sheni, the first day. Shnas Yod Gimel Eyamu Beres, the 13th year, the bar mitzvah year, is not an uber year. He has to wait till Chavtet Adar. There's only one Adar. 28 days before, and he's already getting bar mitzvah. It's not fair, but this is the way it works out. Let's say you were born in Adar, not a leap year, and then it's a leap year. Like the Gemara Megillah says, for almost everything we consider Adar Sheni to be the real Adar. For example, like Megillah and things like that. So therefore, he has to wait an extra month. Yud Aleph, Avarian Shavar Agdiras Sibor Shavar Avera Imloni Duhu Nimil Minyan Asara. He did an Avera, or they made a takana on the tzibor. They said anyone who talks in shul, that's it. You're thrown out of the shul. Even if he comes to the minyan, or he did an Avera, he did a terrible Avera. I don't know. He was a Baruch Lana or something. Imloni du nimna leminyan asara. If they didn't put him in nidoy, so he counts as midah asara. You have to put him in nidoy for Tud Beis, which is the halacha menuda. This is from the Rishonim write about this. Menuda ain't mitzarfen asara l'chol davar sh'sarach asara. A menuda, you don't count him for things that need dvarim shebekdusha. Aval mutar lispal beis hakneses shu sham, and can appear shel hachmer alav bekach. He can still daven in the shul, even if they put him in nidoy, right? You just have to mark Dalet Amos. He can't stand within Dalet Amos, but he could daven in the shul there. This is a halacha. It's actually from a Gemara that have to be in one place. You can't have people, one person standing in the shul, one person in his house. It was very common with these porch minyanim during COVID for people to join. One guy was on his porch, one guy was on his porch. We're going to see the validity of this in a second. They have to be in one place. He has to be with them. Let's say you're in one room and some people are standing in the doorway, right? If you're in the doorway, that's considered outside. In the doorway, even though our poskim that are makel with this, the Shulchan Aruch is machmir and says if you're in the doorway, you're considered outside, and you need to be inside if you want to be counted as part of the minyan. Let's say, however, you're standing behind the Beis HaKnesses, and there's a window there. I feel like gavoa kama komos. Even if let's say you're higher, like on a porch or something like that. I feel ein orach of our boss. It's a small window. Umar elahem panav misham, and not only can he see them, but they can be able to see him. That's the halacha. This is a halacha that's based on zimun, right? That groups of people that are eating, if they can see each other, if they both can see each other, then they're mitzaref to make 3 or 10 for a bigger mizimun. However, if you can't see each other, then you have to be in the same room, right? Even standing in a doorway is not considered good enough. And certainly if you're in the attic or you're on the roof, it doesn't count unless you can see each other. So a lot of shuls at Ezra's Nashim, you can see through the. You have really, if you have really thick mechitzas, so technically you're in the same room, so it'll probably be okay. But let's say you're on a balcony or something like that. So if you can't see each other, sometimes in the really from places they have like a wall with like a window over there, and maybe some people can see through the window, but they're probably not going to look at you if you see you, because maybe it's like opaque over there the window, so you probably can't be mistarif over there. But most places you can see each other from the balcony, so it's okay. Ted Vav, mixasim b'fnim mixasim l'chutz sh'chsibur tocha pesach hu mitzarfan. This is an interesting halacha. Half of the people are inside, half the people are outside. Let's say outside the building or something like that. And shliach sibur is in the doorway. So he connected to this halacha like Zimon, that the waiter, he can see both groups. He connects both of them. Tedzayin chatzer ktana, shneversav melua l'gdola. Let's say you have a small yard, you have a big yard, which are adjacent to each other. The hainu shneversav ktana, and then the wall fell down, and the part of the wall separating the big yard and the small yard fell down. Right, two people have different backyards and they had walls between them. Shneversav ktana v'makom chibur l'gdola v'nafal koso sheyam afsik beinayim. Right, the main wall between them fell down. Right, the bigger one has extra space on the ends because it's bigger than the small one. The bigger one is bigger than the small one. The small one's not bigger than the big one. The small one becomes like a corner of the big one. If you have 9 people in the bigger yard and 1 in the small yard, as long as you have rov. It's interesting that it's 9. Seems like only 9, right? Why didn't I say 8 or 7 or 6, right? Right? The reason is, like I explained in Egan with Ben Sion today, that when you have 9 people, only 9 and above, that becomes called the parish kerua parish nimsta halachach arov, right? Tesha chanuyos, that called the parish meruba parish, that when you have people that are moving and then they stop, things like that, they're moving and then they stop, then you round up. Otherwise, if they're moving all around, then you just go, it's called a ruba de isakaman. If they never moved in the beginning, that's called kavua. But if 9 people were in the small yard and 1 in the big, if you have 5 and 5, it's not misarif. It's not clear about 6, 7, and 8, but I would say 6, 7, 8 are like 5 and 5. The shliach sibur was in the small one, and the 9 people were in the gdola, so he can be motzim, which is very hard to understand. If shliach sibur, he is the one being motzi everybody in their tefillos. He's literally the shliach of the tzibur, right, or shliach of the kal. So how could it be? He's in the corner. He's in the second yard, and he can be motzi the other one. It's hard to understand. And even Shulchan, I'm going to explain more. It's really shliach sibur, not shliach hakal, for a reason. And the opposite, if he's in the big yard and 9 people in the small yard, he's the yachid. You go after the rove. The rove is in the katanas, therefore it doesn't count. Again, some of them are in the azara, they're in a side room or they're on a balcony. They can't see each other. That's what it's talking about. They can't join together. You have to make a min yutet for Daran Shur Kedusha. Still, but Tzibur might be different. Yutet Shtech Tzibur B'Teva Tisha Beis Hakneses Mitzarfin. This is an interesting halacha. Shtech Tzibur is in a box. They put him in the aron. They didn't have a Sefer Torah for the aron, so they put the Shtech Tzibur in the aron. They locked it shut. If you don't like the Shliach Tzibur, so then, just like have these locks in the Aronos over here, so they keep the Sefer Torah safe. They can lock in the Shliach Tzibur. It'll stay there overnight, till next Thursday, from Monday till Thursday. You can survive 3 days without food, right? 3 days without sleep. Tisha Beis Hakneses is Mitzarfin. The Shliach Tzibur is in the Teva, and Tisha is in a box. And 9 people are in the shul. You can mitzvah for them if you can hear them. Even if it's a big Teva, it's tall 10 tefachim, it's wide 4 tefachim. It's a rishus b'fnei atzma for Hilchos Shabbos. 10 tefachim walls. It's batal the Beis Hakneses. In the room, it's in the bigger room. Let's say you have a really big box where the walls go up to the ceiling, then maybe he's in a different room and he can't be motzi them. 10 people in one place, and they're saying, even if you're not there, you're in an azar and you can't see it, you can answer to them. But obviously, you can't be mitzaref to make davar shebekdusha. Some say if you want to answer, you can't have something avodah zara in between you and the minyan, or tino, soa, feces, or something like that, which creates a barrier for halacha. So it creates a barrier that's considered to be, in order to be yotzi, then you have to be mitzaref. When you're answering someone's kaddish or kedusha, you're in a sense joining together with them, so your words are sort of connected to their words, and if there's soa in between them, so then it would be an isra, so you shouldn't answer amen, or you shouldn't answer kaddish or kedusha or baruch hu. Chaval v'ir she'ein ba'ela asara ve'echad mehem rotzel atis b'yamman aroyim. This is an interesting halacha, and it's very important when I talk about Niyan Shulchan Aruch. Let's say you have a city with 10 people, and only 10 people in the whole city, and one of them, this is like, Million Man by Rock. Lenny Solomon, he went to, where did he go in Alabama? What was that place in Alabama he went? I don't know. He went to some place in Alabama. Birmingham? No, he went to, I forgot what the place was. They only have 10 people. And Lenny Solomon went there, and they wanted to leave for Yom Noraim. He wanted to go for Yom Noraim. He wanted to leave. They can put Lenny Solomon in handcuffs and force him to say in Birmingham, Alabama, or they force him to pay for someone else to bring in a rental person for Yom Noraim. Let's say that 11 people and 2 want to leave, right? Yaskiru shneim echad b'shutfus mukomam shneim yifru b'ashava. So they too have to join in and just pay for one other person to make a minyan, and they each pay evenly. If these 2 people, one is rich, one is poor, right? You divide the payments half, right? 50% is even, and the other 50% is based on how rich you are and how poor you are. You have to also pay for a chazan to be motzi you. We're talking about where they don't have anyone who knows how to be motzim in the brachos, to say the piyutim, to say the tfilos. So everyone has to pay for them. It doesn't matter if you want to leave 6 months before. If Lenny Solomon is not coming back for Rosh Yom Kippur, he has to pay, right? He has to be going on his way, but he's gonna have to pay. He didn't say that in the song. He's got to pay. Lenny Solomon should have learned something in hay over here. He should have talked about paying for eventually one of them died, so they only had 9. But when he left that first time, he had to pay. You only have to force people to pay if they're going to leave on Yom Noraim. If they're only left, the deficit is going to be 1 or 2 people. This is a minhag in a city where they're so makbid on minyanim that even if there are 3 or 4 people, the minhag is to be kofei, to make them buy replacements or rent out replacement people, mercenaries to daven. If there is a minyan, right, that is the only minyan we're talking about. Specifically, there's the only minyan in the city, so you force everyone to pay for the chazan, like we mentioned before. In a shul, in a city where there's only one shul, right, and people get up late. They don't like to come to minyan. It's too early, 6 o'clock in the morning. It's too early to come to minyan. They pay knossos. You have to pay a fine if you don't come to shul. They make people come to shul. Shul is batel atomid. It's an interesting halacha because tfilos makom karbonos tiknum. The Gemara in Brachos and Daf Chafav says that one of the reasons tfilos were niskanu was based on the avos, and the other reason based on the karbonos, the karban tamid. So the karban tamid need to have tefillah b'tzibur as the tamid. That's the chiddush of the Ramah. That tefillah b'tzibur the karban tamid. And the command reish simon kuf nonim kofin zezel livnos beis haknes. And maybe you have to actually, if there's no shul in the city, you have to force each other, enforce financial penalties in order to make sure people build a shul. You need to have a shul in a city. I'm going to talk more about the Indian of tefillah b'tzibur in a city that doesn't have a tzibur, right? This is where the whole idea, the notion of tefillah b'tzibur, right, and shliach tzibur applies. Chovas ha'tzibur, chovas ha'yachid. See you in Shulchan Aruch. We talk more about this. I can't wait. I hope you can either. Bye.